Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Selena, and I'm part of the team here at Test Innovators. The focus of our webinar today is the ISEE Everything You Need to Know. This webinar will be recorded, and I will be sending everyone who registered a copy of the recording. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A. At the end, I'll be sure to answer those questions. But if there are any that I don't get to, I'll make sure to email you a response. And with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So jumping in here, I'd like to start by sharing a little bit about our partnership with ERB, the publisher of the ISEE. The goal of our partnership is to help students gain familiarity with the test and to reduce test anxiety so that they can demonstrate what they know on test day. All students will have access to a free preparation option, and students with ISEE fee waivers will receive full access to all of the preparation materials. Okay, taking a look at today's agenda, we will be covering an overview of the ISEE in which we'll discuss the test structure, sections, and scores. And then we'll take a look at some some test preparation strategies, the benefits, the steps of preparation, as well as some tips, both generally and then section specific. So first, let's cover some basics. The Independent School Entrance Exam, which is commonly referred to as the ISEE or the ISEE, is used by admissions departments during the application process to independent schools. The test can be taken up to 3 times per year, once per testing season. Those testing seasons are fall, winter, and spring. And the test is administered on paper and on the computer. One thing to note is that the primary level is only offered on the computer. Let's start by talking a little bit about the structure of the test. There are several levels of the ISEE, including primary, lower, middle, and upper. When determining which level of the test you need to take, keep in mind that the level of the test is dependent on the grade you are applying to rather than your current grade level. The primary levels have a reading and a math section. The primary 2 test also has an auditory comprehension section. One thing to note is that as of this year, the primary level tests no longer include a writing sample. The lower, middle, and upper levels of the ISEE have 5 sections: verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, reading comprehension, math achievement, and the essay. Next, we'll take a deeper dive into each section of the test. The verbal reasoning section has 2 types of questions: synonyms and sentence completion. The first part of the section is made up of synonym questions, and the second part consists of the sentence completion questions. The reading comprehension section consists of passages and questions based on the information given in the passage. There are 2 math sections on the lower, middle, and upper levels: quantitative reasoning and mathematics achievement. The quantitative reasoning section focuses primarily on problem-solving skills and critical thinking. These types of problems frequently do not require significant calculation, but rather numerical and logical reasoning. The mathematics achievement section focuses on specific math content and skills taught in school. However, the general subjects covered in the mathematics achievement and quantitative reasoning sections are the same. It's important to note that students are not allowed to use a calculator on the ISEE. The essay section is the only unscored portion of the ISEE. A copy is sent to the schools along with the score report. Students will be asked to write an essay in response to the given prompt. Next, we will discuss how the ISEE is scored. Students receive 1 point for correct answers and 0 points for incorrect answers or questions left unanswered. It's important to note that the ISEE is scored normatively based on grade level, and scores are presented as stanines. A percentile is a way of comparing student scores. For example, if you score in the 34th percentile, it means you did better than 34% of students in your grade. Note that this is not the same as answering 34% of the questions correctly. Next, we will talk about how to prepare for the ISEE. First, let's talk about why it's beneficial to prepare. Preparation allows students to gain familiarity with the test, which helps them build confidence and decrease test-related anxiety. Okay, so let's jump into how to prepare. The first step is to take a full-length practice test. Make sure that the practice test is accurate in that it provides normative scoring and tracks timing information. Taking a practice test, no matter when your official test date is, will give you familiarity with the test style, difficulty, and content so that you know what to expect. The second step is to review the results. The review process is possibly the most important step. This is the place where you learn the most. You'll want to start by identifying the areas that need the most improvement. So go back through the test and review every question you answered incorrectly or skipped. Read the answer explanation and make sure you know how to do that question if you were to see something similar again. Then you'll want to learn test-taking strategies to understand how to arrive at the correct answer and how to avoid choosing any of the wrong answer choices. Step 3, do targeted practice. Focus on the areas that could use work based on your practice test results. Practice those specific question types until you feel confident with those skills. And then finally, you repeat. So one recommended study schedule is to take a practice test once a week or every other week, depending on how close your test date is, and then to complete the recommended practice exercises in between. Next, we'll go over some general test-taking tips. The first strategy is process of elimination. The questions are multiple choice, so you know the correct answer is there. Don't forget to use the answer choices to help you find the correct one. If you don't know the answer, eliminating answer choices is a great place to start. Start by crossing off the choices you know are wrong. Then, if needed, make an educated guess. Eliminating answer choices will increase your chance of choosing the correct answer. Because the ISEE does not have a wrong answer penalty, you should make sure you answer every question. Using your time effectively is critical. Every correct answer gives you the same number of points, so your goal is to answer as many questions correctly as possible. Don't waste valuable time on a hard question when you could instead answer 3 easy questions in the same amount of time. Your first step is to group questions by difficulty, easy and hard. Every time you read a question, ask yourself, do I know how to do this? If the answer is yes, absolutely, do the question. If the answer is no, or I'm not really sure about this, mark an answer for the question and circle in your test booklet to come back to it later. Marking an answer helps you avoid having your bubbling get off on your answer sheet. You'll do this for every question in the section. With this strategy, you answer all of the easy questions first. Then, after you're done with the whole section and you've answered the easy questions, go back and work on the hard questions that you mark to come back to later. Make sure that you keep track of time during the test. It's important to pace yourself so that you have time to answer every question. Knowing about how much time you have per question in the section will help you gauge if you need to pick up the pace or if you can slow down a little bit. It's important to practice and get a feel for what it's like to spend 1 minute versus 4 minutes on a question. This will really help you get a sense of the importance of time management on the ISEE. Now we'll go over some tips for each section of the test. Let's start with the verbal section. Studying vocabulary is an important part of preparing for the verbal reasoning section. Studying for just 15 minutes each day can help you improve. There are several ways to study vocabulary, including flashcards, writing sentences that contain the vocabulary words, drawing pictures depicting the word. Knowing roots, prefixes, and suffixes can be very helpful when encountering unfamiliar words. And finally, using the vocabulary words in everyday conversation. As I mentioned earlier, the first part of the verbal reasoning section includes synonym questions. An effective strategy for approaching the synonym questions is to cover up the answer choices so that you can come up with your own answer first. Then find the answer choice that is closest to the one you came up with. This will prevent you from choosing the wrong answer choice. The second part of the verbal reasoning section consists of sentence completion questions. Similar to the synonym questions, you'll want to start by covering up the answer choices and coming up with your own answer first. Then you'll want to read your answer in the sentence to make sure it makes sense. Next, find the answer choice that is closest to the one that you came up with. And finally, read the answer choice in the sentence to make sure it's correct. For the sentence completion questions, make sure to pay attention to direction words, such as although and despite. Also, be sure to focus on the nouns and adjectives that give you clues about what will go in the blank. And don't forget to think about the overall meaning of the sentence. Okay, let's go over some strategies for reading comprehension. The most important rule of reading comprehension is that the passage will always provide all of the information needed to answer the question. If any part of the answer choice doesn't match the information given in the passage, it is incorrect. Whenever possible, after you read a question, come up with the answer before you look at the answer choices. This will help you eliminate wrong answer choices and find the best answer. In general, avoid answer choices that are too extreme. If you see answer choices with words like only, always, never, or other extreme words, these are unlikely to be the correct answer. You should only choose them if you are absolutely sure that this sentiment is in the passage as well. Additionally, answer choices that are too specific are generally not correct. And similarly, answer choices that are too broad are typically not the correct answer either. Good time management is critical to success on the reading comprehension section. The passages are quite long, so it's best to skim and underline important information, such as repeated words and the first and last sentences of each paragraph. With all that in mind, however, you don't want to rush too much because it may cause you to overlook important information. Next, we'll go over some helpful tips for the two math sections, quantitative reasoning and mathematics achievement. There are several helpful tips and strategies for math questions. First, be sure to read the question carefully and underline important information. This includes words and numbers indicating the quantities, relationships, and calculations that you'll need to answer the question. After you solve the problem, check that you answered the given question. Look back at what the question was asking you to find and make sure this matches your answer. Also, don't forget to write down your work on your scratch paper. Estimation is a powerful tool for eliminating wrong answers. For every question, before beginning to solve, ballpark what you think the right answer should be. For some questions, the jumping off point is in the answers, so it's helpful to work backwards. For questions with an unknown quantity, you can substitute the answer choices for the unknown quantity to see which is correct. Always start with the middle answer choice to minimize the number of answers you have to substitute. Sometimes the math questions may seem challenging to solve abstractly. In cases like these, it can be helpful to use actual numbers to determine the answer. And finally, drawing pictures is a powerful strategy for word problems and for questions with shapes and graphs. Finally, we'll discuss some strategies for the essay section. The writing portion of the ISEE is not scored, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't prepare for it. When writing your essay, make sure to choose a topic that showcases something you care about and are familiar with. Remember to write in a way that shows you in a positive light. This is your chance to show the school who you are outside of school. With limited time to write, managing your time effectively is incredibly important. Start by spending the first 2 to 5 minutes outlining your work. After you have a plan, go ahead and get writing. This is where you'll spend the bulk of your time. You'll need to watch the clock and save yourself 2 to 5 minutes at the end for review. Your essay should have a clear, focused topic that directly answers the given question. It should be much like the essays you've written in school, with an introduction, 2 to 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Your writing should include examples and specific details that make your writing come alive. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A. I'll be sure to answer any questions I don't get to via email. You can check out our site at ISEEpracticetest.com or feel free to contact us with any questions you may have. We are here 7 days a week. I recommend checking out our free ISEE prep guide. It has everything you need to know about the test, as well as tips and strategies for each section. I'll send a link to our ISEE prep guide in the email with the webinar recording. And as a thank you for joining us for this webinar, please feel free to use the coupon code ISEE Need to Know for $15 off of our advanced package for the lower, middle, and upper levels. All right, that's all for now. Thanks so much for joining us today.